I should say that I haven't deleted the quotations from my lecture because I think they are the most important part of it, actually. Also, one or two of the quotations I feel are so apposite, so important, that I may read them twice. And nevertheless, in spite of all that, I think you'll find it's a short lecture. Modern science has revealed many aspects of nature which mankind had not perceived until now. In the fields of chemistry, physics, and biology, the laws of nature have been slowly discovered. A common feature of all natural laws is their immutability, or the very clumsy English word changelessness. They are totally reliable, these laws of nature, and in this they share with the great universal law of karma, which plays such an important part in Theosophy. Fundamentally, as you all know, it is the law of cause and effect, by which the whole cosmos operates throughout all its parts. If you were to take a spaceship to the millions of miles into the universe, we would find the same laws unchanging in their applicability and their immutability. HBB writes in the Key to Theosophy, "We consider it the ultimate law of the universe, the source, origin, and fount of all other laws which exist throughout nature. Karma is that unerring law which adjusts every effect to its cause on the physical, mental, and spiritual planes of being." Again, this quotation, it's so important. I want everyone to really get it. "We consider it," she says, "the ultimate law of the universe, the source, origin, and fount of all other laws which exist throughout nature. Karma is that unerring law which adjusts every effect to its cause on the physical, mental, and spiritual planes. The inevitability of the law is taught in the Dhammapada. If a man speaks or acts with an evil thought, pain follows him as the wheel follows the foot of the ox that draws the carriage." Well, we don't see many oxes pulling carriages these days, but my good friend Yancey Hoskins, who many of you will remember, loved drawing a diagram of an ox pulling a cart because she thought this was such a fantastic illustration of the inevitability of the law of karma. Of course, I'm saying all this because of the application to this of the Hermetic axiom, "As above, so below. As is the inner, so is the outer." It enables us to imagine how the spiritual, esoteric world operates, thereby bridging science and spirituality. Great comfort, I think, for us, that the next world is not that different from this one in the patterns which it exhibits. The scientific method is to observe nature and suggest hypotheses which explain her behavior. So we are told in our literature that the process of checking and rechecking in order to validate the laws propounded by earlier generations of wise men has continued from time immemorial. In the last few centuries, this method has had, as you all know, spectacular success in the field of material science, while at the same time it has provided the evidence for the esoteric science, which is the basis of the wisdom tradition and Theosophy. Recent evidence of this type, of an esoteric nature, has been provided by the phenomenon of near-death experiences, called by us NDEs. They provide a consistent, repeatable pattern, which of course is an aspect of the natural law of cause and effect. And this evidence is very supportive of Theosophical teaching, particularly in the Mahatma letters about the after-death processes and reincarnation. Many modern scientists are strangely reluctant to allow the use of this process of validation of scientific research to be used outside the field of natural science. However, there is no logical reason why the same criteria should not be applied in the spiritual realm. Here, repeatability, consistency, and immutability are just as important in establishing the truth as in the natural sciences. At the end of life, a person needs to be able to face death with confidence that his or her consciousness will survive. And knowing the truth is then very important to that person. The esoteric teaching on the nature of time and space in the spiritual realm also provides a foundation for truth about the survival of our higher consciousness. But regretfully, I'm on a short talk and I can't expand on that area, which I would love to do. As well as our ordinary, everyday waking consciousness, there is a spiritual consciousness which can be accessed when we raise our awareness into our higher principles. This is sometimes described as the opening of the third eye. It is here that the experiences we have with materialistic science can help us. As we learn science, we are able to see more deeply into nature. But the student has to make a long and sustained effort over many years to reach that state of high expertise, as many of you will know. So it is with spiritual perception. So it is with spiritual perception. There are no shortcuts. Sometimes a number of lifetimes of effort are required to achieve enlightenment. The old adage, practice makes perfect, is as relevant here as in all other branches of human endeavor. It is part of this universal spiritual quest which is summed up in the third object of the Theosophical Society, to investigate the unexplained laws of nature and the powers latent in man. This is not only a corporate aim of a group of people, a society, but it also constitutes a personal, individual purpose of life for everyone on the path to spiritual maturity. We read in the SD, the cycles of matter will be succeeded by the cycles of spirituality and a fully developed mind. On the law of parallel history and races, the majority of the future mankind will be composed of glorious adepts. Humanity is the child of cyclic destiny, and not one of its units can escape its unconscious mission or get rid of the burden of its cooperative work with nature. Thus will mankind, race after race, perform its appointed cyclic pilgrimage. The whole purpose of life is to achieve spiritual maturity. The scientific method, which has been so successful on the physical plane, may well be the best method for advancing in spirituality. Many techniques have been employed by the mystics down through history, and there are many paths that can be followed, of which the scientific path is only one. This method, however, does seem particularly appropriate for the 21st century and the modern age of scientific progress. However, didn't Krishnamurti say one of Krishnamurti's most famous sayings, "Truth is a pathless land," and each person has to find the path for them to spiritual maturity. In the Mahatma letters, we read, "The mysteries never were, never can be put within the reach of the general public, not at least until that longed-for day when our religious philosophy becomes universal. At no time have more than a scarcely appreciable minority of men possessed nature's secret." In the Key to Theosophy, Madame Blavatsky refers to the double consciousness of the human mind, and I think this is one of the most important references to the whole subject in the Key to Theosophy. She writes, "There is a spiritual consciousness, the monastic mind illumined by the light of Buddhi, that which subjectively perceives abstractions, and the sentient consciousness, the lower monastic light, inseparable from our physical brain and senses. This latter consciousness," she says, "is held in subjection by the brain and physical senses, and being in its turn equally dependent on them, must of course fade out and finally die with the disappearance of the brain and physical senses. It is only the former kind of consciousness, whose root lies in eternity, which survives and lives forever, and may therefore be regarded as immortal. Everything else is passing illusion." Now, don't you think that's a fantastic text? I really do. It's so good. It's the only one that I'm going to read again now, but I have to read it again because I think it's so superb. In the English edition of the Key, it's page 179. I don't know whether that's on the board. Can't see. There is a spiritual consciousness, the monastic mind illumined by the light of Buddhi, that which subjectively perceives abstractions, and the sentient consciousness, the lower monastic light, inseparable from our physical brain and senses. This latter consciousness is held in subjection by the brain and physical senses, and being in its turn equally dependent on them, must of course fade out and finally die with the disappearance of the brain and the physical senses. It is only the former kind of consciousness, whose root lies an eternity which survives and lives forever, and may therefore be regarded as immortal. Everything else belongs to passing illusion. This higher monastic mind is only activated when we cross the Antikonara bridge, which provides the only way to enlightenment and spirituality. I hope you've all heard of the Antikonara. I'm sure you have. Defined more fully in the instructions as that path or bridge of communication which serves as a link between the personal being whose brain, as we've just heard, is under the sway of the lower animal mind, and the reincarnating individuality, the spiritual ego, manas, manu, the divine man. To cross this bridge, which is really the whole business of this whole conference, to cross this bridge is one of the most difficult and yet one of the most profound events in the path of a pilgrim. It can only be achieved by constant attention to the spiritual life and practice which is offered by meditation and study. Some travellers on this road find religious practice also helpful when a religion has an accessible, deeper esoteric side to it, and I am one of those. I conclude this short talk with a quotation from Collected Writings, volume 13, a famous quotation. I'm sure you've all heard it, but it's so relevant I read it here to conclude my talk. There is a road, steep and thorny, beset with perils of every kind, but yet a road, and it leads to the very heart of the universe. I can tell you how to find those who will show you the secret gateway that opens inward only and closes fast behind the neophyte forevermore. There is no danger that dauntless courage cannot conquer. There is no trial that spotless purity cannot pass through. There is no difficulty that strong intellect cannot surmount. For those who win onwards, there is reward past all telling, the power to bless and save humanity. For those who fail, there are other lives in which success may come. Thank you.